The narrative opens with a cloaked individual perched atop a castle, patently awaiting the extinguishing of a light, before infiltrating the premises to assassinate their mark. Just as he prepared to descend, a presence alerted him from behind, returned to discover a dark-haired youth standing atop an adjacent tower. The distant gaze sent an instant shiver down the hooded man's spine, prompting him to assume the boy was a fellow contract killer. However, a more careful observation revealed otherwise. Hatton recognized the youth as the fabled silent assassin, renowned for his extraordinary capabilities. The cloaked figure understood that evasion was futile and a confrontation was inevitable, so he swiftly moved to gain a strategic vantage point, unleashing a volley of sharpened, metallic projectiles at the silent assassin. Regrettably for him, the assassin proved too agile, evading the assault with remarkable ease. The assassin then charged directly at the hooded man, who drew his own dagger, attempting to finish the fight with a single, decisive thrust. However, the dark-haired youth skillfully parried, and deflected the strike using his own bladder. In a flash, he engaged in a rapid exchange across the rooftop until the younger assailant deftly disarmed his adversary. The contract killer, however, was not easily subdued. He once more hurled a cluster of spikes, which the assassin skillfully avoided, yet this maneuver created a momentary vulnerability for the hooded man to exploit. Unluckily for him, the dark-haired boy had already foreseen this, effortlessly sidestepping the impending blow. Materializing behind him, the cloaked hitman as desperation mounted as he grasped the immense disparity in their abilities. He then unleashed every attack he possessed against the younger assassin. But the boy, conversely, maintained his composure. He parried and intercepted every single count and blow the hitman launched, even managing to block his concealed sublime. With no further stratagems left, the hitman was incapacitated as the assassin merely stabbed him in the arm, then proceeded to break his leg, leaving him prone on the ground. The hitman, though scarcely comprehending as with which the boy had overcome him, yet he resigned himself to his defeat as a sword descended from above, bringing his suffering to an eternal end. With his rival eliminated, the assassin proceeded into his target's chamber, where the individual lay asleep, utterly oblivious to the pain. He steeled his determination anew, and raised his dagger to strike the target, thereby concluding his assignment. Only a short time prior, this lethal assassin had been a solitary, ordinary Japanese teenager named Akira. He attended high school and typically chose to spend his leisure time alone, engrossed in manga, and his phone. The majority of his peers paid him little attention. However, on a momentous day, a sudden rift appeared in their reality, transporting him and all his classmates to an entirely distinct realm. Three found themselves in the center of a royal court, all frightened and questioning if it was a dream or a practical joke, when an elderly mage emerged from a doorway, announcing that the royal sovereign wished to confer with him. None comprehended the unfolding event as, with some even mistaking it for a costume gathering. But shortly thereafter, the king, accompanied by the princess, entered the chamber and greeted him to his new world, explaining he had been summoned via a unique magical rite. The monarch promptly addressed the matter at hand, declaring himself the sovereign of the largest human kingdom, which was presently endangered by an impending demonic assault. He asserted that only a hero originating from another dimension possessed the genuine strength to vanquish the demon lord permanently, warning that failure would condemn them all to the mist and devastation. The mage then advanced, stating the necessity of identifying the hero, and directed everyone to approach and place their hands upon the magic crystal. Individually, and Tiger Boy stepped forward first, placing his hands on the crystal, only for his status to be unveiled as merely an animal trainer. He appeared disheartened, but the mage reassured him, explaining that his attributes still significantly surpassed those of any ordinary individual. Gradually, the students discovered their respective statuses, with some manifesting as mages, others as creatures, and a few as shadowy. Akia, however, observed an anomaly. Everyone else appeared to possess baseline attributes of 180, while his own assassin stats were an astonishing 1800, 10 times that amount. Finally, the next boy, Sato, approached the crystal sphere, and was identified as the hero among them, boasting initial stats of 1000. The elderly make extended congratulations, asserting that the foundational attributes for every individual were capped at a maximum of 500, but as a hero, his worth was that figure. This revelation underscored an anomaly with Akira's statistics, as his appeared to be almost double those of the hero himself. The entire group applauded Sato, given his popularity within the class, while one of Akira's parents urged him to disclose his own statistics to everyone. Akian, contemplating their predicament and acknowledging their complete ignorance of his world and its mechanics, deemed it imprudent to disclose such an unusual numerical value without first gathering additional intelligence. With everyone as attributes assessed and the hero identified, the old mage announced that the world already received armaments and other gear corresponding to their respective classes before dismissing them to their quarters for the evening. While heading back to his room, he also spotted a concealed camera. This indicated that they were under surveillance. Avache found highly suspicious, prompting him to employ his concealed presence scheme to bypass their watchful eyes. Upon reaching his room, he changed into suitable attire before stepping onto the balcony, fully absorbing the reality of his presence in an alternate world. With this realization, he resolved to promptly begin gathering further intelligence. With a mere couple of leaps, he expanded the castle wall to its summit. Without expending a noticeable effort, he reflected on his extraordinary capability. He then spotted an open window and stealthily made his way into the king's private study. There, the monarch inquired of the princess if all was proceeding as planned. The princess responded that the youths from the older realm appeared entirely unaware of the true situation and possessed insufficient magical aptitude to cause any trouble. The king instructed her to maintain vigilance over them before redirecting his attention to his task. Employing his control presence skill, Akira was virtually undetectable as he stood next to the key, musing on the edge with which he could eliminate the man at that very moment. However, he chose not to act. The following morning, Akira took his place at the breakfast table alongside his classmates, who appeared utterly unburdened by concerns. Meanwhile, Sato, the well-liked and virtuous individual, rose and delivered a rather awkward speech about their significantly enhanced strength compared to their original world. He urged them all to concentrate on assisting the inhabitants of this realm with their newfound power and to combat the Demon Lord, precisely as the king had directed. The entire class resoundingly affirmed their support for what Akira perceived as a naive strategy, while he pondered whether to disclose his recent findings. Given that these unsuspecting individuals were operating under the assumption that the king and princess were their allies, following breakfast, the students were all gathered at the training grounds. There, the Lord Commander of the Royal Army, Saren, introduced himself, stating that as they were all novices, he would personally oversee their training. After which they could venture into a dungeon to genuinely test their capability. Sato promptly galvanized the group, asserting their commitment to performing optimally. Meanwhile, Akian, still maintaining his controlled presence, quickly observed the chaotic scene from a distance, resolving to pursue further intelligence gathering on his own. To his astonishment, Akira found Saren following him. Saren then handed over the group as leadership to his lieutenant, Gil. Akira pondered if his presence concealment ability had failed, or perhaps it had a limited active duration. However, Saren simply smiled, assuring him there was no need for concern as his abilities appeared to be functioning perfectly. He revealed that he possessed a unique mystical secret, allowing him to discern temperature differences, essentially making him a living thermal camera. Akira grew tense, his hand instinctively moving to his body, asking if trouble was brewing. Saren quickly calmed him, asserting he had no intention of exposing him to the king, nor to the princess. Still skeptical, Akira questioned Saren's true allegiance. Saren replied that the matter was far too complex to be easily explained. Realizing Saren was delaying, Akira slightly lowered his guard and mentioned his desire to visit the library to gather as much information as possible. When Saren inquired about the level of his concealment skin, Akira disclosed that it was surprisingly maxed out, while all his other abilities were still at level 1. He admitted they had no idea how to enhance them. Saren smiled, offering his help, suggesting Akira wouldn't find what he needed at the library anyway. Akira debated how much trust to place in him, yet he counted the allure of growing stronger. He composed himself and asked Saren how exactly he could return to his own world. Saren confessed he had no clue about that, but stressed Akira as need to become as powerful as possible, as his survival was the only way to discover a path home. Akira stated he disliked accepting assistance without reciprocation. Saren proposed that Akira could repay him by sharing details about his world. This arrangement seemed satisfactory, as Akira shook hands with Saren, marking him as the first person in this world he chose to trust. Soon, he began learning about the world as other races. These included the Beast World and Elfir, each inhabiting their own separate continents. Akira also continued to rigorously train his physical and mental faculties. He maintained that training was the sole method to improve his skills and progress, while his classmates also underwent separate instruction under Guild's guidance. On evening, Akira went to meet Saren. Having found a book he was certain was penned by the Lord Commander. Saren took the book and smiled. He confirmed it was indeed his own plan to overthrow the king, cleverly disguised as a book. Saren then revealed that the king was a broken man beyond redemption. The king intended to undertake drastic, world-altering actions, which Saren could not permit. Simultaneously, Saren served as the commander of the Royal Navy. Bound by a sacred duty to protect the monarchy, Akira understood his predicament and disclosed. He confessed they had the opportunity to kill the king on the very night they were summoned, but couldn't bring himself to use his dagger. Saren warmly affirmed that Akira had made the correct decision. He added that being an assassin didn't necessitate committing murders. Finally, a month passed, and the soldiers were prepared to enter the dungeons. They were greeted by widespread applause and cheers from nearly the entire city. However, Akira noticed a hooded girl glaring at him from a distance. Utilizing his skill, he materialized behind her. Catching her off guard, he questioned why she was staring at them with such fury, and the blue-haired girl replied. She explained that while everyone in the city hailed him and his companions as heroes, she knew the true sacrifice made for their summoning. Akira admitted his ignorance regarding a sacrifice. She dismissed him, much like an NPC, telling him to discover the truth himself before walking away. Soon after, they entered the dungeon. Inside, monsters emerged from every direction, and every stone seemed to conceal a trapdoor, unleashing even more creatures. The students appeared weary and weak. Akira fended off as many attackers as possible before asking Saren if they should retreat. Saren responded that they had achieved a noble value. He then used his defense skin to clear a path ahead. Gil instructed everyone to run towards the exit, yet they found themselves still trapped underground. Their path was blocked by a horde of monsters. Suddenly, the awkward Lord Sato remembered the smoke bomb the prince had given him, claiming it would repel creatures. He hurled the bomb at them, but to his horror, a minotaur emerged from the smoke. Gil arrived, shocked to see a minotaur on the upper floor. Sus creatures were typically found match weapon within the dungeons. Akira immediately sprang into action, dodging a blow and leaping onto the Minotaur, plunging his dagger into its head. To his dismay, his dagger shattered into pieces, forcing him back. Sato remained on the ground, too weak to lift his sword, but Akira told him to stay out of the fight. He reminded Sato that he was destined to be the hero who vanquished the Demon Lord. Commander Saran arrived, realizing the gravity of their situation, just as Akira suggested Saren use his special ability. Akira proposed Saren use his unique power and left the rest to him. Saren warned of potential danger, but seeing the resolve in Akira SIA, he decided to cast the spell immediately. A massive lightning bolt shocked the Minotaur, while Akira positioned himself behind the monster, ready to strike. Akira then activated his shadow magic, sending sharp spikes of pure darkness. These spikes flew towards the Minotaur, which was still struggling with Saren as lightning bolt. However, the creature soon broke free and targeted Akira. Unaware that Akira had already cast his spell, as the Minotaur swung its heavy axe at Akira. Its hand was pierced by the dark spikes. Akira then embedded even more spikes into its body. Once confident the monster couldn't easily escape, he began pulling it down into the dark abyss beneath its feet. The Minotaur was swallowed by the abyss. The spikes then severed its head just before it completely vanished. Everyone was stunned to witness Akira defeat such an incredibly powerful monster. But then, his power suddenly spiraled out of control. Panic ensued as he struggled to retract the shadow spikes, but fortunately, Saran stepped in to help him calm down. Thanks to Saran's guidance, Akira managed to regain control of his power, deactivating his shadow magic. He felt fortunate to still be alive. Saren told him he had truly exceeded expectations that day. Upon their return from the dungeon, Saren thanked Akira for saving everyone's life. Akira, however, felt they didn't deserve all the credit, stating he couldn't have defeated the Minotaur without Saren as support, especially since he hadn't been able to properly cast shadow magic during training. Saren remarked that this was the first time he had heard of an additional skill called shadow magic. He agreed that Akira currently had minimal control over the spell. He warned him to be cautious about using it next time, then decided to give him a sword. This sword was personally for the first hero. Akira accepted the weapon, and asked Sari Lui he was giving it to him instead of the current hero. The commander replied. He explained that Sato already possessed the Holy Sword. The more significant reason, however, was that Saran had stolen the sword from the royal treasury, and giving it to the stupid hero would lead to his immediate arrest. Akira gladly accepted the sword and then discovered some inscriptions near its hilt. The first one, it read Yato no Kami. The next inscription conveyed the first hero's wish that his sword would guide his successor through times of trouble. Akira commented. He expressed a desire to have met the first hero. Reflecting on her, Akira remembers the unbreakable trust placed upon Sato, which enchanters had failed to leave. No matter how many times the enchanter tried, Akira sensed something suspicious was happening, and Saran had a theory. The person behind the curse was actually the princess. A female figure attempts to enslave Sato through a dark magical rite, but Akira intervenes just in time, shattering the enchanted crystal. The princess, furious at the destruction of her ritualistic artifact, demands to know how Weidar trespassed into her private chambers without permission. Akira, brandishing his sword, retorts, "Cut on who chooses others forfeits the right to be called Awama," then presses her for an explanation of her actions. The princess replies that her deeds are solely for the monarch's benefit. When Akira inquires about her unwavering obedience, she retracts her previous justification. Observing her vacant, lifeless gaze, Akira comprehends the situation and exits the chamber, unaware that the princess possesses additional enchanted crystals she intends to employ against the remaining students. Concurrently, Akira brings the shattered crystal to Sarin, admitting that Sarin's earlier warnings about the princess were accurate. Sarin observes that the princess as malevolent deity, such as cursing Sato, are ongoing, suggesting she has abandoned her wicked ways. He then questions Akira about whether he revealed his identity to her. Akira confirmed, explaining his intention to engage in a rational discussion, but found her unresponsive. Sarin then asserts that the princess is currently nothing more than the king's pawn. He then advises Akira against spending the night within the palace wall. Akira, intrigued, inquires about the rationale. Sarin clarifies that while the princess can curse others, she cannot affect him due to his concealed identity. Therefore, she will likely target Akira for assassination instead, prompting Sarin to insist they avoid the palace. Akira questions if he will be reprimanded for his imprudent decision to show his face, though the commander responds that impetuousness is characteristic of adolescents, and that it falls upon adults like himself to mitigate the consequences. The following morning, Akira awakens to a disturbance emanating from the royal residence. Upon his arrival, he discovers a large assembly of people. He observes that Sato is no longer under the curse's influence and inquires about the unfolding events. Sato informs him of Sarin's demise, a revelation Akira struggles to comprehend. He then pushes through the throne to witness Sarin's levels form on the ground, a dagger piercing his chest. Akira is grief-stricken by the loss of his sole companion. Yet his fellow students instruct him to chase his pretense, convinced he is the perpetrator. They have heard the word as you say highest ill, to terror trust, says the girl said doing the battle than minute halt, this has all us. Furthermore, she branded him as suspicious and unreliable since their arrival. Akira speculates if they are afflicted by the princess's curse, a suspicion validated by their collective accusation. While everyone else condemns him, only Sato steps forward to defend him, insisting on a thorough investigation. However, the king pronounces Akira as immediate execution for the alleged assassination of their esteemed commander. He commands his guard to apprehend him, but Akira employs a stealth ability to conceal his presence, thus escaping unscathed. As the king dispatches his forces to score the entire palace for him, Akira selects out Gem, who discloses that Sarin was murdered by the elite assassination squad, acting on the king's direct command. The same assassination unit is now pursuing Akira, but Sarin, having foreseen this, had prepared travel provisions in his room. Jill instructs Akira to retrieve the supplies and make his escape. Akira expresses gratitude to the vice commander before hurrying to Sarin's quarters to collect the provisions, inadvertently leaving behind a small satchel in his haste. Later that evening, the king reflects on how Sarin was vanquished with unexpected ease, leaving no one to challenge their authority. The princess then informs him that the indoctrination of all the students, excluding the hero, has been successfully completed, and now she merely requires a pretext to initiate conflict with adjacent kingdom. The king expresses his satisfaction upon hearing this news. He then instructs the princess to deploy the assassins to pursue Akira, ensuring he does not endure long enough to pose a danger to their plans. Concurrently, Akira has sought refuge in the dungeon, recalling Sarin's past advice that it serves as the optimal location to elude those in pursuit. However, its sole deficiency is the absence of potable water. While the dungeon offers an unparalleled environment for skill enhancement and character progression, most individuals shun it due to its inherent perils. Sarin had previously cautioned Akira that even his ability to mask his presence would prove ineffective against formidable, high-level monsters possessing exceptionally acute senses. Yet, if he advances sufficiently in power, he could learn to eliminate his sin and even suppress his body temperature, thereby achieving nearly any pursuer. Heading this council, Akira ventures further into the Dungeon, eyeing formidable creatures such as Flame, Hounds that detonate upon defend her recollects Sarin as past mention of a unique ability. Bestowed upon Eva Yonwoo attains level 100, significantly enhancing her power. Overcoming the dungeon as formidable bosses presents the swiftest route to accumulating experience. However, these encounters are life or death struggles from which retreat is impossible once initiated. Akira is resolute in his commitment to rapidly increase his strength, whatever the sacrifice. Having vanquished the Flame Hound, we proceeds into the boss chamber, where an enormous demonic lion awaits. The Lone Beast instantly launches an assault. Akira skillfully evades its initial attack, yet fails to perceive that the creature as tail is a serpentine appendage capable of spitting venom. Caught unaware by the venom, he is then impaled by the monster as claw. Akira acknowledges his sheer fortune in surviving the blow but remains steadfast in his refusal to surrender. As the lion hurls him aside, Akira resolves to unleash his full power, deploying his shadow magic. Ominous spears of darkness instantly impale the beast, shredding it to fragments. However, Akira as control falters, and he loses consciousness. Nevertheless, masculine voice emanates from within him. The voice declares that its master has sustained excessive injury, necessitating the forceful activation of the shadow magic. The shadow promptly converges on his form, initiating a healing protocol. Utilizing the mana reserved within his shadow magic to mend his wounds. Meanwhile, back at the palace, Sato orders his classmates to embark immediately on their quest to vanquish the demon lord. Yet the majority respond that the teaming is inappropriate, given the recent demise of the Knight Commander. Sato, however, maintains that immediate action is imperative, lest they face irreversible consequences. Nevertheless, most students, still under the curse's influence, dismiss his urgency as futile. Sato proclaims his intention to proceed alone as necessary, but serendipitously, a few individuals express their willingness to accompany him. Sato is perplexed as to why they would opt to follow him while still afflicted by the curse. Yet, he asserts their conviction that they have overcome its effect. The enchanter states that she possesses the ability to distinguish between those who are cursed and uncursed individuals, and is certain that all present are now unburdened by the enchantment. Asahi, the towering swordsman, attributes this to himself, vaguely recalling, slitting through peculiar crystals within an unfamiliar chamber. He has no recollection of how he arrived there or acquired a samurai sword, but from that moment onward, a handful of students were liberated from the curse. It is revealed that Jill orchestrated this, as his suggestion skill surpasses any curse in its efficacy for compelling a target to perform a singular, straightforward action. He expresses satisfaction at having managed to rescue at least a few students, fulfilling Sarin's final directive, and now can only extend his best wishes for their expedition. Concurrently, Asahi believes they must unite with Akira without delay, recognizing that Akira alone possesses the true understanding. During their period of enchantment, he recollects an instance from their original world when he discovered Akira engaged in a part-time job at a railway intersection. Akira had requested him to maintain confidentiality about his employment, wishing to keep it hidden from his classmate and younger sister, a request Asahi readily honored. Upon discussing their sister, they realized the girls were close friends, which subsequently led to a positive rapport between them within the Dungeon. Akira awakena, haunted by a dream of the past event, and his thoughts turn to Asahi's safety. He then becomes aware that his physical condition is remarkably improved. He checks his status screen, discovering a boost in his attributes and his health fully restored. Furthermore, his shadow magic ability has advanced a level. Although they have only employed it a single time, he struggles to comprehend just rapid advancements. Nevertheless, he dismisses the mystery for now, Closing to delve further into the Dungeon as depths. Arriving at the 75th floor of the Dungeon, he is instantly assailed by a slum creature. Akira, taken aback by encountering such a monster on his lower levels, swiftly cuts it down. To his astonishment, a beautiful elf tumbles from the vanquished monster as remnant. Perplexed, Akira opts to activate his World Eye ability. This skin, which he had never had the opportunity to employ previously, reveals a multitude of ghastly sights upon activation, nearly causing him to vomit. He deactivates the ability, preventing an influx of overwhelming information from flooding his mind. At that moment, the elf girl, Amelia, regains consciousness, and Akira inquires about her well-being. She asserts that she is unharmed, yet Akira remains skeptical, remembering he had previously observed her status indicating her health points had plummeted to a mere 2%. Akira is also aware that Amelia possesses the World Eye ability and has already employed it against him. She addresses him by name, questioning their location, to which he responded that we are in a dungeon. He explained he is here to gain experience, then projects to admonish her, stating that it is impolite to secretly view another person's status. However, she abruptly collapses into his embrace. Akira discovers she has a favor and transports her to the 69th floor for recuperation. Amelia awakens with a jolt. Akira instructs her to consume water to maintain hydration, subsequently offering her porridge. Following this, she poses a question to him. She inquires why he transported her from the 75th floor all the way to the 69th. Akira explained that it was the closest level possessing a water source, then advises her to rest. Expressing gratitude for his rescue, she discloses her royal lineage as a princess, a detail Akira largely disregards. Shortly thereafter, Amelia makes a full recovery and accompanies Akira on his expedition. Upon reaching the dungeon as 80th floor, she employs her gravity magic to aid him in combat, though he remains displeased with her presence. As she trials him into perilous situations, Amelia informs him that her path aligns with his, then boldly asserts that she possesses ample strength to protect herself. Akira is left with no alternative but to allow her to join him, and soon they step into the boss chamber, where a fearsome dragon awaits. Poised to eliminate a trespasser, the dragon instantly unleashes blue flames in their direction, which they successfully evade. Akira then conceals his presence. Meanwhile, Amelia utilizes her gravity magic to pin the dragon, creating an opportunity for Akira to strike. Nevertheless, the dragon detects his approach, even through his invisibility spell, and swats him aside. Amelia shouts to Akira that the dragon is perceiving him via his mana signature and urges him to merge it with the ambient mana, a technique Akira has not yet mastered. Consequently, he resolves to engage in combat as Hachipicali does. He activates his shadow magic, launching a solitary dark spike at the dragon, which grazes its face and compels it to alter its course. Capitalizing on this opening, he plunges his sword into the dragon SIA, felling the beast. Amelia is genuinely taken aback by his audacious combat approach. However, just as she prepares to inquire about the specifics of his ability, the dragon S-form begins to emit a radiant glow, startling both of them. The dragon morphs into an enormous buffalo, a transformation neither Akira nor Amelia can comprehend. Amelia then activates her World Eye skill, and as Curtain stuns the cat is a shapeshifter, thereby explaining its previous dragon form. The situation now clarifies itself to her. As an authentic dragon, Wolf possesses far greater resilience than this cat. Akira expresses admiration for Amelia's effortless use of her World Eye, and she, in turn, questions why he does not utilize it himself. He recollects the intense mental strain he experienced, almost as if his men were tearing apart the last time he attempted to employ the skill. attributing it to his insufficient level for proper execution. Amelia, however, is convinced that Akira's difficulties stem from his subconscious rejection of the ability. Just then, the black cat stirs and begins to speak. The cat expresses his disappointment at being vanquished by a human and an elf, despite having assumed the dragon form merely for amusement. Akira is utterly bewildered upon hearing the monstrous feline converse. The cat takes offense at Akira's reaction, admonishing him not to categorize him alongside lesser monsters governed solely by instinct, as he is an entity of advanced intelligence, fashioned by the Demon Lord himself. Akira retorted that such distinctions are irrelevant, as the child will be incapable of further resistance after the previous blow. The black cat professes indifference towards its impending demise but stated it has a final message for Akira. It receives, emanating a formidable and ominous aura. It informs Akira that the Demon Lord anticipates his arrival at his fortress, located deep within the volcanic demon continent. This revelation immediately sparks Akira's suspicion. He questions how the Demon Lord is aware of his existence and the reason for the summons to his castle. The Black Chan responds that the Demon Lord as naturally transcends Akira's comprehension. Thus, they can do great comfort and coronation. Yet, emergence and the law, looking at sleep, would talk and relate. The cat admonishes him to chase his pretense of aloneness, reasoning that since humans universally are the money and monsters as adversaries, it would be logical for him to dispatch it without delay. Akira disputes this assertion, stating that in his view, the true adversary is the king, and he does not accept the claim that demons are inherently their foes. Amelia, however, interjects, reminding him that the boss room as exit will remain sealed unless they either defeat the god or are themselves vanquished by it. The black cat concurs with her statement. It then questions Akira if he intends to perish from starvation. In this place, Akira asks the reason for his reluctance to kill it, and his response is both straightforward and astonishing. He declares himself a cat person, and, unlike other creatures, the black cat possesses the ability to communicate with him. He is convinced that a workaround must exist, enabling them to exit the boss chamber without resorting to killing the feline. Amelia then recollects an alternative method, explaining that if Akira wills to forge a fight with the black cat, accepting it as his familiar, it won't case to be classified as a boss monster, and the exit would become accessible. The black cat scoffs at this suggestion, asserting that only a highly skilled magic practitioner, possessing exceptional mana control, could successfully perform such a ritual, and Akira lacks the necessary qualifications. Amelia disputes this, disclosing that Akira has already exceeded the required threshold for the ritual, and she remains the black cat. That Akira had previously disassociated his mana from his physical form to Disorin 8, an accomplishment only previously achieved by the first hero. Amelia expresses confidence in Akira's ability to attempt the ritual, so she harbors doubts about his ultimate success. He inquires about the consequences of failure, and the Black Chan responds that one of them would praise her. And, in the dearest scenario, both might forfeit their lives. Akira declares his willingness to undertake such a risk, a decision the Black Cat fails to comprehend. It questions his motivation, then urges him to proceed, stating its own indifference to death. Akira becomes infuriated by the cat's nonchalant attitude towards life and demise. The Black Cat responds that continued existence offers it no happiness. Akira resolves to reason with it at a later time. Then asks Amelia for instructions on performing the ritual. She discloses that the initial stage involves bestowing a new name upon the feline. Akira christens him Neil, inspired by his exquisite food, which evokes the image of the nocturnal heavens. The feline shows no response to its name, prompting Akira to advance to the subsequent stage, infusing its paw with mana. Amelia cautions him that this action is irreversible, Once he begins channeling mana, Shoulge lost control of the chat, his life called before fade. Akira, however, remains certain of his triumph. As he commences infusing the chat spell with his mana, a potent, engulfing wave washes over him, revealing the creature as true inner nature. Abruptly, however, the stand shifted. He suddenly plummets towards a city engulfed in flames. Akira is appalled by the horrific spectacle, then observes a snake wreaking havoc, slaughtering Aion attempting to flee. Akira attempts to halt Nagant, but the latter retaliates with dark mana, inflicting severe injuries. As Akira struggles back to his feet, Knight commands him to chase his hesitation and his life, asserting it as the sole path to survival in this place. Yet, Akira finds himself unable to strike the villain. Consequently, Knight resumes his assault, striking Akira with formidable claw. The injuries Akira sustains within this dream realm begin to manifest physically in his waking world. Realizing the gravity, he at last resolves to resist he hurls his dagger at Knight, who effortlessly parries it before commencing to gather his dark energy. With the intent to swiftly conclude the confrontation, Akira rushes towards Knight, but rather than attacking, he deliberately allows Knight as claws to pierce him. The Black Cat is utterly bewildered by this action, demanding to know Akira's intentions. Akira responds that he has no desire to kill him, and he understands that he, though, wishes no harm upon others. Knight retorts that he is a monster, and despite his intellect, his primal urges relentlessly drive him to slay anyone who obstructs his path. Akira, sensing Knight's exhaustion from constant killing, declares that Knight no longer has to contend with his instincts in solitude. He gently grasps Knight as close, vowing to protect him, and ensure he never again has to resort to such action. Gradually, the dream realm starts to dissipate, and as Knight is thrust in Akira deeper, he transforms into a regular-sized villain, finding solace in Akira's embrace. The dream world as soon as mirrors the tranquility Knight, though experienced, nestled safely in Akira's arms. With this, Akira awakens from the dream realm, and upon realizing the pact ritual was successful, he touches Knight to verify. A golden mark materialized on the back of his hand. Subsequently, the red mark on Knights forehead also shifts to gold. Amelia clarifies that this signifies the successful completion of their pact. Akira's soul is now bound to the Kati. Knight also awakens, commenting on his eagerness to witness Akira's future endeavors, and formally accepts him as his master. He pledges his life and service to Akira. Afterward, Amelia introduces herself, and Knight responds that, as his master as companion, she too commands his respect. At that very moment, a magical circle materializes on the ground, signaling the boss as defeated. However, Akira appears deep in contemplation, stating his wish to advance to the NEXT level. Aloyadi, he asks, noting Knight as injuries. Knight reassures him that the exit will stay open until they choose to use air to their as known, past as to touch in her recuperations. Amelia then proposes they utilize this period to become better acquainted. Knight promptly concurs, and Akira is subtly taken aback by the swiftness of Knight's personality chef, Manuel. Sato and his group arrive in a nation established by a hero, summoned from Earth just like themselves, and they are all profoundly struck to discover the country bears an exact resemblance to historical Japan. Everything feels familiar, and they begin to relax. Prior to deliberating their future strategy, Sato emphasizes that their immediate concern must be their financial resources. With only a month before they become penniless and without shelter, all members suggest becoming adventurer, deeming it the most suitable profession. Sato agrees, then transitions to the subsequent subject. This next topic is intelligence gathering. He advises them to seek out individuals well-versed in this world, as well as to search for books containing crucial information. Another boy says, expressing a wish for a book that makes reveal how to return to Earth. However, Sato is convinced that vanquishing the Demon Lord offers their best chance for repatriation. He theorizes that only the king and princess possess the knowledge to send them home, and despite their corrupt and malevolent nature, he must be swayed by the defeat of the Demon Lord. He proclaims that once he acquires sufficient funds and intelligence, they will proceed directly to the Demon Continent. Asari, however, voices his dissent. He contends that he always to reunite with Akira before venturing to the Demon Continent. As his good feeling indicates Akira is rapidly gaining power, far more swiftly than Anion is, and he is undeniably crucial to their team. While some members align with Asahi as few, others still harbor the belief that he is Commander Saran as killer. A minor dispute erupts among them regarding this issue, but the Gears intervene to mediate and select Sato as perspective on the matter. As the leader, he holds the ultimate decision-making authority. Sato concurs with Asa, acknowledging that Akira is already more powerful than Zi. However, he expresses skepticism about their ability to collaborate with him, noting Akira as aversion to involvement with others, and his continued lack of recollection of Sato. Despite having been classmates since kindergarten, this revelation shocks everyone, and even Asahi concedes that Akira is not inherently a team player. Sato's status that, according to ancient tales, only the hero as Holy Sword can vanquish the Demon Lord, thus necessitating his own intrinsic strength to fulfill this role. He believes that even if they locate Akira, he won't take consent to cooperate if they are too feeble. Therefore, their resolve is to await Akira in this nation, while they are diligently strive to augment their power. Meanwhile, Amelia is sharing her personal history with Akira and Nef, explaining how her own sister had expelled her from their country, with her sister as forces determined to end her life. They had cornered her near a precipice, prompting her to employ gravity magic to descend into the river below, which then carried her to safety. Nevertheless, she was injured and exhausted, and a black slime capitalized on her vulnerability, engulfing her entirely. The next thing she recalled was being inside the Domain, where Akira had just rescued her. Akira feels sympathy upon hearing her tale, but Knight identifies inconsistencies, pointing out that slimes do not consume humans. He adds that even if a slime had ingested Amelia, she would have been digested long before her rescue. Amelia admits she does take comprehend it either, but she expresses gratitude to the slime that led her to Akira. Akira suggests she return and attempt to resolve matters with her sister. However, Amelia has already resigned her soul, feeling incapable of watching her sister. Akira, Kauge, reassures her that things will somehow resolve, emphasizing their familial connection. He mentions having a sister himself, and despite her constant cheekiness, he cares for her deeply. Amelia and Kagdane inquire if he wishes to return to his homeworld to reunite with his family. Akira confirms this, but states he has other pressing matters to attend to first, then begins speaking of Siren. He describes Siren as the man who guided him on how to survive in this world, and he becomes enraged when contemplating those responsible for Siren's death. He vows to assassinate the king, and the princess for Siren's assassination. His sudden surge of murderous intent causes both Amelia and Knight to tremble with fear. Amelia cries out his name, jolting him out of his homicidal rage. Once he has regained his composure, both Amelia and Knight inform him that they are familiar with Saren's name, as he was a renowned knight commander. Sensing the escalating tension, Akira quickly produces his glove. Instinctively, Nega, the cat, pounces, attempting to capture it. Akira observes with satisfaction that this tactic, which proved effective on the stray cats near his home, also captivates this monstrous feline. Amelia, too, expresses a desire to attempt shortly thereafter. Soon, Akira and Amelia are affectionately embracing Knight, reveling in the plush softness of his fur. Neige, however, admonishes Akira to approach their bond with greater gravity, explaining that their souls are intertwined, implying that the demise of one would inevitably lead to the other as Akira, already aware of the simply expresses contentment at having acquired a child familiar, given his profound affection for Valenette. Amelia confesses her envy, admitting her own fondness for cats. After their playful interlude concluded, they resolve to depart from the Dungeon. Akira inquires of Neige about the destination of the teleportation magic circle with the feline familia, admits ignorance. Knight explains that merely a select few demons retain the knowledge of crafting such magical conduits. Akira resolves to locate these individuals and compel them to serve him upon his arrival on the demon continent. Abruptly, Amelia recalls a tale concerning pale blue magic circles, which are said to transport individuals to their heart as desired. She adds that if several people step into one, it responds solely to the aspirations of a single individual. Akira voices concern that this could pose an issue, but Amelia reassures him, declaring her willingness to go anywhere, provided she is be he said. Akira pays little heed to her declaration as he enters the magic circle. A fleeting thought crosses his mind about it potentially returning him to his family, but he quickly dismisses it, prioritizing his quest for retribution. Instantly, the magic circle glows, transporting the group to Aden's forest, where a colossal tree dominates the horizon. Amelia is stunned at the sight of the tree, which Knight identifies as the World Tree. He informs them they are in the Elven Forest, and despite Amelia as disbelief at their arrival, Akira considers it a favorable location. Unexpectedly, a concealed elf in the tree fires an arrow at Amelia. But fortunately, Akira perceives the dagger just in time, pulling her out of the arrow's trajectory. He then looks at the archer, parrying the incoming projectile with his dagger before swiftly closing the distance behind the assailant, and tackles the archer to the ground. Amelia recognizes him as Liam. Liam Statzer, he had not anticipated encountering the traitor while investigating the light emanating from this area, and urges Amelia to flee for her life. Akira, uninterested in his rambling, promptly renders him unconscious, but then comprehends his own lack of speed. As they are already encircled by Alves, Amelia's sister, Kilika, personally commands the group, informing Amelia that her willing return to the controversial Shervet. Amelia's men drift to a bygone era of idyllic perfection. She had been the crown princess of the Elven Kingdom, and alongside her fiancé, Liam, she had lovingly overseen her younger sister, Kilika, who was her utmost delight. This flawless existence, however, proved fleeting for Amelia when Liam abruptly declared his intention to dissolve their engagement. Distressed by his word, Amelia instructed him to discuss the matter with her father, who had arranged their union. At that precise moment, Kilika appeared and informed Amelia that Liam refused to marry her, branding her a child of bloodshed. This marked the genesis of Amelia's woes, and soon after this revelation, Kilika commanded soldiers to pursue her. Branded a criminal by Amelia was relentlessly hunted, yet she miraculously endured and eventually encountered Akira. Presently, she experiences apprehension facing her younger sister. She implores Kilika not to harm her, vowing to depart from the nation. At once, Kilika, however, has no intention of releasing her, this time continuing to hurl insults at the visibly anxious Amelia. Akira intervenes, sharply telling Kilika to silence her foolish remarks. Kilika demands to know his identity and why he is a criminal. Akira responds by stating he is merely her friendly neighborhood assassin, who became acquainted with her sister a few days prior. He then questions Kilika about Amelia's specific transgression that warrants such criminal treatment. In response, she pulls back her RM covering, exposing the injury inflicted by poison. Akira reacts with astonishment, and Kilika explained that Amelia administered a potent toxin to her, cleverly disguised as a restorative elixir. Declaring this to be her offense, the surrounding crowd begins to revel Amelia, labeling her a heartless wretch, while Amelia softly insisted she truly offered a healing potion. Kilika challenges her, asking if she simply self-inflicted her for the purpose of incrimination, and Amelia remains speechless. Kilika then approaches Akira, expressing gratitude for returning a sought after criminal to their land. As she draws near, she employs her unique power to mesmerize him. Amelia's warning to Akira comes too late, for Kilika's enchantment has already taken hold. Kilika believes Akira is now under her influence, leaving Amelia defenseless. Abruptly, Amelia confronts Kilika, demanding she release Akira from her spell and apologize, asserting that only he possesses the right to determine his own actions. Kilika is visibly surprised by this outburst, having never witnessed such defiance from Amelia. However, Akira suddenly interjects, urging both women to calm down. He reveals that the mesmerization ability had no effect on him. Amelia is overjoyed, while Kilika stands dumbfounded. Nate explains that mental manipulation spells are ineffective against individuals significantly more powerful than the spellcaster. This principle, he notes, applies to Kilika and Akira. The elven princess, however, scoffs at the notion of Anyon surpassing her in strength. Akira retorts that he would conceal his inferiority only if she confessed to self-poisoning to incriminate Amelia. Enraged, Kilika orders her soldiers to execute Akira. Akira, poised to unleash his shadow magic to subdue them all. It's fortunate that the king makes a timely appearance, issuing a command for all soldiers to lower their arms. Kilika is stunned by his presence, as he was expected to be away on an extended diplomatic journey. The elf king sternly demands an explanation for the commotion. A soldier informs him that Amelia poisoned Kilika, but the king silences him, insisting his daughter provide the answer. Kilika remains mute, while the soldiers under her influence assert her innocence. The king instantly discerns that Kilika has enchanted Trip and commands her to revoke the spell without delay. When she refuses to spend, the king warns her that he will discipline her later for her misbehavior. He turns his attention to Akira, offering an apology for Kilika's conduct. Subsequently, he instructs Akira to depart at once, citing the prohibition of other races within the Elven Kingdom. Amelia informs the king that Akira saved her from pride and facilitated her return home, but her father dismisses this information. Incensed, Amelia declares her intention to live with Akira, stating her unwillingness to remain in his narrow minded realm. The king, enraged by her defiance, orders Amelia to cease believing she has the liberty to act as she pleases in their reign. That she is the designated successor to their throne and must remain to oversee it. Amelia appears daunted, but Akira interjects, informing her father that no one else possesses the authority to dictate her life choices, and he is prepared to contend with Anyon who attempts to usurp her autonomy. At that moment, Liam regains consciousness, and upon discovering Akira incapacitated one of their most skilled warriors, he opts to grant him an opportunity. He issues a challenge to Akira for a duel, with Amelia as freedoms as the wagon, and names Kilika as his champion. Akira agrees to the contest and accompanies the king to the World Tree, the designated venue for the confrontation. Amelia expresses regret for involving him in the predicament, but he assures her he willingly chose this path. He then questions her about the anchor. Amelia clarifies the concept of a child of blade, explaining it refers to a twin who bears no resemblance to their parents. Such a child's prophecy to bring immense misfortune upon Ireland. Akira expresses astonishment that Amelia and Kilika are twins, while Knight shows greater interest in the Sword of Blade narrative. Amelia confirms this belief was debunked as a mere myth long ago, Yen she acknowledges that money still label her with the term due to her complete lack of resemblance to her parents. Upon reaching the World Trade, Akira opts not to hide his presence, aiming for an honorable victory. Amelia, in turn, cautions him to exercise care. She warns him because Kilika is renowned as the most adept elven swordsman. Akira observes that Amelia appears to hold her manipulative sister in high esteem. Despite all her past deeds, Amelia responds that she witnessed the dedication Kilika invested in her training. As the duel commences, Akira refrains from even drawing his sword. When Kilika demands she unsheathe his weapon, he retorts that he wishes to avoid inadvertently killing her. Kilika, confident, believes she will secure an effortless victory. Her goal is to reclaim her feather as confidence, but Akira completely disregards her. Instead, he expresses gratitude to Amelia for her earlier display of anger on his behalf. Amelia blushes in response. With that, the king signals the duel as commencement, and Kilika immediately lunged at Akira, precisely brandishing her sword. However, Akira proves swifter, effortlessly evading her assaults. He observes her considerable strength and speed for an elf, yet acknowledges she remains no match for his superior abilities. He maneuvers past her and shoves her aside. But Kilika reveals a hidden tactic. She imbues her sword with wind magic, unleashing a potent gale toward Akira. The ghost forces him backward. He narrowly evades it, but Kilika persistently drives him back. Soon, he seizes an opportunity to counter, sweeping Kilika off her feet. Before she can recover, he is already positioned behind her. Akira urges her to concede and implores her to reconcile with Amelia, emphasizing that her sister still holds affection for her. Kilika defiantly refuses, proclaiming she will never pardon her sister for stripping her of everything. She instantly unleashes another formidable assault. This pushes Akira back, but he diverts the wind spell she devised, striking the elf soldiers. Instead, Akira then commands Knight to shield Amelia from the uncontrolled attack. He transforms into his larger form, intercepting the wind assaults. Meanwhile, Kilika screams that she possesses nothing remaining. As her sister has deprived her of everything, she reminisces about their childhood. A time when they shared a profound closeness, yet, once it was revealed that Amelia was a spirit medium, capable of manipulating the world. If her powers fully manifested, Everyone's treatment of her shifted dramatically. The choice giving Kilika attention, causing her to brag. No, she desires to reclaim everything from Amelia. Who, ironically, is that way concerned for her sister. At that moment, Liam appears, carrying a weapon object and urging Amelia to use it to save Kilika. The mysterious item is revealed to be a branch from the Holy Tree. Utilizing its power, Amelia liberates everyone from Kilika's hypnotic influence, realizing she no longer commands Anyon. Kilika descends into a frenzy. She unleashes her full magic to assault Akira. Wu quickly understands that if she evades, Amelia will be destroyed. He employs shadow magic to counteract Kilika's wind-based assault. However, he can comprehend that his power is far greater, and his attack would utterly consume Kilika in a split-second decision. He opts to draw the shadow magic into himself instead. As the shadows envelop him, Akira anticipates injury, but to his astonishment, his body becomes cloaked in a dark aura instead. Uncertain of what is occurring, he charges forward merciless, ngaging Kilika and incapacitating her. Kilika is utterly heartbroken, believing she has now lost everything. Akira, however, advises her to trace her constant weapon, stating she is oblivious to those who genuinely care for her. Just then, Amelie and Liam make their appearance. Kilika remarks that she must have underestimated Liam if her mesmerization spell dissipated on him first. Liam explains that he immediately saw Amelia on street, but Amelia attempts to clarify that She was never truly under her enchantment. Kilika, disbelieving, refuses to accept it and inquires how she intends to penalize her for her transgressions. Her father, however, interjects, stating that if Anyon merits punishment, it is he. Kilika is perplexed by his word. Consequently, her father lifts the forgetting spell he had placed upon her. Kilika has lost memories, beginning from her childhood, gradually return. She had diligently trained to enhance her strength, and resolved to enter the dungeon to advance. Yet her father had only permitted her access to the third room. Uncertain if this was sufficient, one day a mysterious woman offered her assistance to rapidly increase her power, providing her with a magical artifact. This item was capable of summoning more formidable monsters, decided to accelerate her leveling. The knife Kilika accepted it without much thought. However, upon activating the magical item, potent orcs materialized before her. Despite her utmost efforts, she was unable to defeat him and chose to flee instead. However, when the orcs pursued her out of the dungeon, she became concerned that her pupil would be impaled. Thus, she resolved to face the orcs with every ounce of her strength. Just as she neared the fight, Liam, accompanied by soldiers, hurried to her aid, but abruptly, a cunning goblin ambushed him from the bushes, impaling Liam as case with its limb. While the enigmatic woman chuckled, declaring her shame at triumph, Kilika was shattered. The king was compelled to employ his magic to erase the entire traumatic event from her memory. Fortunately, Amelia managed to avert disaster by devising a spell to resurrect Liam and the fallen soldiers. From that day onward, Everion maintained a distance from Kilika. This was done to prevent inadvertently disclosing the truth to her. Kilika, however, interpreted her aloofness as a lack of care, attributing it to Amelia being a spirit medium. The king discussed that he had hoped Kilika would triumph in the duel against Akira, thereby affirming her royal stature and imbuing her with sufficient confidence to withstand the shock of her restored memory. When he eventually reinstated them, however, since she failed to win the fight, he was forced to restore her memories through an entirely different approach. Liam abruptly gasped before Kilika, explaining that he wished to prevent her from harming Amelia. Therefore, he faked being under her mesmerization spell and assisted in Amelia's banishment. Kilika is incredulous. At this revelation, the king then disclosed that a leaf from the world tree had entered Liam's body during his resurrection. Consequently, he is virtually impervious to all detrimental effects. Liam expresses remorse for not managing the situation in a way that would have prevented Anyon from being hurt. Kilika then comprehended that she had been mistaken all along. She had unfairly blamed everything on Amelia. Despite being the source of distress for those around her, she begins to weep, castigating herself. However, Amelia reassures her, telling her not to, as she is truly remarkable. The two sisters share a heartfelt reunion, after which the soldiers hasten to attend to Kilika, none tend to her injury. She is astonished to witness that Everion genuinely cares for her, even when not under her influence. Later that evening, the king hosts a celebratory party for Akira, acknowledging his victory in the duel. Akira agrees to let Amelia determine her own future, and she chooses to accompany him wherever he wishes to go. He discloses that his next destination will be the Basement continent, as Nick informed him it is the optimal location to continue his quest once the festivities conclude. Amelia summons Akira to a secluded spot and requests that he alter her name, the accomplice, and she expresses joy at hearing him speak at her, vowing never to be separated from him. And Knight requires a their childish behavior. Meanwhile, Akira's classmates are aboard a vessel. Sato expresses regret to Asahi for not being able to delay their departure for Akira. Asahi comprehends their decision, acknowledging that further growth wouldn't have been possible there. Consequently, They are journeying to the basement continent to refine their ability and acquire superior armaments. Shortly thereafter, Akian and Amelia prepare to depart the Elf Kingdom, with a crowd assembled to bid them farewell. Amelia and Kilika have reconciled their differences. Liam and Akira exchange assurances to look after their respective daughter. The king then informs Akira that a contingent of soldiers will escort him. This escort will extend to their nation as frontier due to a recent surge in abductions within the area. Amelia holds onto Akira tightly. She asserts his capability to safeguard her, but the king remains unconvinced. They pay concern for his daughter's safety. Kilika declares her intention to accompany and protect Amelia. Disregarding the king's wishes, Liam also volunteers to join. The remaining troops express a desire to follow, but Akira, wishing to avoid an encumbrance, declines their offers. Before long, Akian and Amelia travel by carriage towards the border, with soldiers maintaining vigilance around them. Akira questions Knight about his unusual silence in the Elven King's presence. Knight responded that most individuals harbor animosity towards monsters, and this quite the manner was to prevent any complications for Akira. Akira subsequently inquired if excessive submissiveness might not lead to issues with the Demon King. Knight confirms this, explaining that his senses remain connected to the Demon King, allowing him to perceive all. Nevertheless, the Demon King does not dictate Knight's actions or allegiance, and Knight asserts his unwavering loyalty to Akira. Akira probes what Knight would do if they were compelled to confront the Demon Lord. Knight chooses to defer that token, stating that the Demon Lord merely wishes to observe Akira. Amelia proposes that the Demon Lord may genuinely seek friendship. Knight endorses her idea, remarking on Akira's impressive display the previous day. This, high beliefs, must have piqued the Demon Lord's curiosity. He points out that shadow magic is rarely mastered, yet Akira enveloped himself in it. Akira, however, downplays its significance. Abruptly, his dagger sensing skip activated. He commands the soldier to halt the conveyance and dismount us, discovering that abductors are lying in wait. These kidnappers hold a captive, threatening the girl slave if Akira's party attempts any action. They then provide the arrow for the group to bend themselves. One of the brigands identifies Amelia. He musses on the immense satisfaction their leader will feel upon retrieving the elf princess as a tribute, while the outlaws are thus preoccupied. Akira employs his ability to mask his presence, swiftly incapacitating the brigand before they can reach her. When he reappears, the assailants lie unconscious on the ground. Akira instructs the soldiers to secure them. Concurrently, Amelia releases the captive, and Akira proceeds to question the captured bandits. He inquires about their leader, previously referred to as Graham. A soldier informs him that Graham holds a royal position in Ural, the largest base folk nation. Akira then directs the soldiers to transport the captured brigands back to the capital, as he intends to project independently from this juncture. The soldiers counter-taunt their directives only to escort him to the harbor. Despite this, Akira persuades them to return. Shortly, he arrives at the port and embarks on a vessel. Akira informs his companions that upon reaching the base folk continent, he plans to acquire superior weaponry and advance his power. Amelia expresses astonishment that he still desires greater strength, to which Akira responds that he will exhaust every possible avenue to avenge Commander Serene. Knight informs him that a port city on the base folk continent contains a dungeon where he can enhance his ability. However, the journey there will span several days, and during this interim, he agrees to simply unwind and savor the voyage. As the ship commences its journey, Amelia becomes eager to reenact moments from Titanic, specifically mentioning her desire to perform the iconic pose with Akira. He, however, a self-reliant individual, disregards her, opting instead to let Abu give be the king. As a parting present, Amelia laments her father's choice, believing it distracts Akira from her. But her sentiments hold no sway with him. He continues engrossed in his reading throughout their passage. Eventually, he arrived at the base folk continent, making their initial stop at the port town of Earth. Akira observes that only humans are engaged in manual labor there. He dismisses this thought and project, but is soon cornered by Sripati Rufiana. They instruct him to abandon the elf gear and flee. Their demeanor leads Akira to understand the baseman as prejudice against humans. He advances towards the baseman, underestimating his capabilities. Eagerly charges forward, intending to assault him. However, Akira employs his shadow magic, launching dark projectiles at their aid. Their be blinding then, Ye-chan continues into the city, where Knight's presence appears to instill fear in everyone. Amelia questions Knight about this phenomenon, and they explains that the inhabitants of this continent have ample cause to dread Black Cat. Following this, Akian and Amelia secure a hotel room and partake in a substantial meal. Akira prepares for sleep, and Amelia remarks on the exclusive size of their bed, suggesting that a single bed will suffice for both. Akira is startled by her blunders, having anticipated a less direct approach. Neil assumes the role of Amelia as accomplished, informing Akira that he will be taking a late night walk, implying he are free to do as he please. Akira is now bewildered. Amelia, Manuel, cheerfully enters the shower for him. Yet, upon her emergency, Akira has already drifted off to sleep. Unwilling to disturb him, she softly kisses his cheek and lies down beside him. It is revealed, however, that Akira was merely feigning slumber, as he wished to avoid the intimacy with the disposal bitch. The following morning, Ned prepares precisely as Akira awakens. Amelia stays moments later. Nexon instructs them both to prepare. As a visitor is expected shortly, his guest is Ro, a gothic best folk blacksmith. Whom Ned had summoned to assist Akira covertly stated as he could not decline as summons from the nightmare of Aldoria. Amelia expresses curiosity regarding this detail. Akira, conversely, already comprehends Cro's implication and refrains from seeking further explanation. He introduces himself. The blacksmith promptly requested to inspect his weapon. Akira presents a sword, heavily chipped in numerous places, and Crow instantly identifies the dungeon where it was used, judging by the damage patterns. Impressed, Akira asks if it can be mended. The baseman blacksmith agrees to the repair. In exchange for appropriate payment and materials, Akira accepts this term, then requests the creation of 20 throwing weapons. Crow deduces Akira's profession as an assassin. Yet he senses Akira lacks the mental preparedness to wield his weapons without causing harm. Amelia becomes indignant at this assessment, but Akira calms her, affirming Crow's accuracy. Knight contrasts, revealing that while Crow is currently a blacksmith, he was once a member of the hero's party. Akira and Amelia react with astonishment. Crow, however, shows no desire to reminisce. He provides Akira with a list of necessary raw materials and the repair expenses before departing. Knight then informs Akira that despite Crow's haughty demeanor, he is the most proficient blacksmith across the entire continent. Akira accepts this, yet ponders how he might swiftly accumulate the necessary funds. Knight advises him to venture into the dungeon to hunt monsters, which would also yield some of the required raw material. Manuel, Amelia, growing restless, abruptly informs Akira of her intention to speak with Crow about a matter, prompting Akira to instruct not to accompany her. While Akira collects information, Amelia trails Crow to his workshop. He greets her with a cold inquiry about her purpose, to which Amelia begins explaining how the former hero's expedition against the Demon Lord was unsuccessful, With only the hero and the best folk surviving, Crow anticipates her inquiry will concern the elf who was also part of that group. However, Amelia's interest is also here. She wishes for Crow to instruct her in combat, given his evident strength had allowed him to escape the Demon Lord's fortress. Crow promptly dismisses her plan, declaring she has no intention of accepting any more apprentices. Amelia reacts with astonishment at this revelation. She then inquired if he ever had students previously. Crow confirmed he had numerous, but none possessed the resiliency to withstand this rigorous training, ultimately either giving up or deserting. Amelia vows not to abandon her efforts, or succumb to pressure. She expresses a desire to remain by Akira Eseda, but acknowledging his superior strength, she aims to train diligently and achieve his proficiency. True, however, maintains his refusal. Then addresses Knigen, stating his sole commitment was to man his master's armaments, and nothing beyond that. Knight concurs, pointing out that Amelia is not his master, thus allowing Crow to decline her appeal. Nevertheless, Knight expresses displeasure at Crow's habit of referring to him as the nightmare of Adoria consistently. Crow retorts that such attitude is well deserved. Unable to suppress her curiosity, Amelia then asks Knight about the subject of their conversation. He reveals that a century prior, Adoria stood as the most flourishing city on the Bestfall continent. The Demon Lord had ordered him to assault it as retribution for the Bestfall's actions, which involved encroaching upon his domain. His initial objective was merely to inflict some destruction and instill fear among the powerful, but his primal, monstrous orgies overwhelmed him, leading him to rampage and utterly devastate the city. On that fateful day, he acquired the moniker Nightmare of Adore, and Black Cat subsequently became an emblem of dread across the entire continent. Through his telepathic connection, Akira perceives the entire narrative and now feels a sense of sympathy for Knight. Knight confides in Amelia that the incident left him so profoundly traumatized that he believed life had no further meaning. Yet, his perspective shifted after encountering Akira. He has since overcome his regrettable past and now desires to live for the benefit of his new master. Crow, upon hearing this, lets out a derisive snort. However, Crow assures Knight that he harbors no resentment towards him. He then resumes the story Knight was recounting, informing Amelia that shortly after the event, he visited a memorial site to honor the victims of Knight's rampage. Unexpectedly, Knight was also present, and they both recognized on another. On that occasion, they challenged Crow to strike him dead, should he seek vengeance. However, the brass man showed no interest, believing Knight to be merely a pawn of the Demon Lord, and that exciting revenge upon him would be futile. Furthermore, he harbored no desire for vengeance against the Demon Lord, as his true adversary was a different individual. He informed Knight that his sister, who resided in the city, had not perished in his assault. She was among the survivors, actively assisting in the rescue of wounded individuals. It was then that a royal named Graham arrived. He was desperate to depart the town, fearing Knight's potential return, and was prepared to blast through collapsed structures to forge a path, utterly disregarding any people troped within. Through a sister attempted to intervene, but he violently pushed her aside, then proceeded to detonate everything obstructing his route, resulting in the deaths of everyone in that vicinity. Crow was incensed and yearned for vengeance against Graham. Yet he restrained himself, believing his compassionate sister would not approve. Upon hearing his account, Amelia labels him a coward, perceiving his sister as a mere pretext to evade the confrontation. This accusation provokes his anger. However, she discloses that she once behaved similarly, until Akira instilled in her the courage to tackle her challenge directly. Crow, unable to tolerate any further moral posturing from her, orders her to leave. Concurrently, Akira arrives at the Domain only to discover that access is prohibited. Based on Adventurer Runner, just as he contemplates masking his presence to infiltrate, a sudden monster outbreak erupts, with massive tendrils of energy bursting through the Domain as structure, and formidable creatures pouring out of the ruptures. These energetic tendrils incinerate everything in their path, prompting Amelia, who was just returning from Crow's residence, to use her gravity magic to contain them. She instructs Knight to aid the populace, and swiftly moves to save as many as possible. As Amelia maintains control over the chaotic energy, a hooded youth appears, mounted on a monstrous creature. He remarks that her magic evokes pleasant recollection. Amelia identifies him as the scoundrel who deceived Kilika into releasing a horde of orcs, which precipitated the earlier incident. The boy introduces himself as Orat and informs Amelia that the Demon Lord has specifically commanded him not to slay her, owing to her distinctive magical abilities. Nevertheless, he is permitted to inflict sufficient harm to ensure her survival. He then plays an unusual flute, directing an energy tendril to encircle her, and Amelia observes monsters lurking within it. Now entirely ensnared, she comprehends that evading Oram as a soul is impossible. Elsewhere, Akira is fully engaged in battling numerous monsters. Kenneth then contacts him, relaying that Amelia has been abducted by a demon, who dragged her into the Domain. Akira instantly rushes towards the Domain. However, this path is obstructed by an overwhelming number of monsters and the pervasive blue energy. He retrieves a sword from a fallen individual and commences dispatching the creatures. Yet, this approach proves insufficiently rapid. Just then, Knight appears, offering apologies for his failure to safeguard Amelia. But Akira dismisses his concern, stating it as irrelevant at this moment. Akira instructs him to withdraw, as he intends to confront everything simultaneously. Knight promptly takes flight, and Akira subsequently unleashes his formidable shadow magic to consume all the monsters and the blue energy in a single sweep. He is overwhelmed by fury, recognizing that Amelia has grown profoundly significant to him. To evoke such powerful emotions, he vows to rescue her regardless of the sacrifice, but as he completes the absorption of everything with his shadow magic, he collapses into unconsciousness, having expended an excessive amount of energy. Knight, observing from above, immediately descends to Akira as he the moment he falls, pondering how to assist him. Suddenly, he hears the voice of this stem that serves Akira. The voice explains that Akira has utilized more mana than his physical form can sustain, thus a healing. Shadow Magic Protocol will automatically engage to man him. Shadow swiftly envelop Akira, and his body begins to emit a glow as the shadow magic draws upon Stout, mana to repair his physique. And they can only observe this spectacle with a mixture of awe and bewilderment, completely unable to comprehend the events unfolding. After a full day elapses, Akira awakens abruptly and questions Knight about his current location. Knight discloses that he transported him to Crow's dwelling after his collapse. Noticing the setting soon, Akira inquires if he had been unconscious for merely 5 hours. Knight informs him that he remained unconscious for a full day and 5 hours, which is comprehensible given his instantaneous expenditure of excessive mana. He then tells Akira that, fortunately, his shadow magic autonomously activated and restored him, as he would have otherwise perished. Knight then asks precisely what his shadow magic entails, to which Akira admits he has no knowledge. Akira states that its nature is currently secondary. As the first and more pressing concern, he promptly descends to the lower floor, where Crow awaits him. Akira expresses gratitude for the use of the bed and requests that Crow include the cost on his tab. Crow then asks him about his destination, and Akira responds that he must rescue Amelia without delay. The Dark Cloud Blacksmith informs him that more than a day has passed, and Amelia could potentially have already been transported to the Demon Lord's domain. Akira loudly declares his intention to storm the Demon Lord's fortress, but Crow urges him to calm down. Akira retorted, insisting he is already composed. He clarifies, she is merely in a rush. Crow questions his composure, noting he is leaving his weapons behind. Akira sharply responds. Akira explains his current lack of weaponry, stating, "Theory being mended." Crow then directs his attention to an inevitable, revealing he is passionate Akira's sword into a pair of short daggers. He justifies this by saying daggers are more suitable for an assassin. Furthermore, he covered the material and repair expenses himself, citing the urgent situation. However, he requests Akira reimburse him at his earliest convenience. Akira examines the dagger, expressing gratitude to Crow, who then presents another item, a ring, which he claims was forged by Aether II, ordered hero. The ring bears an inscription, "I will guide you everywhere." Crow expresses astonishment that Akira can decipher the text. Akira clarifies it as his native tongue. He inquires about the ring's purpose, and Crow explaining, it assists its bearer in locating their desired objective. Immediately upon hearing this, Akira slips on the ring and activates its capability. The artifact then emits a laser-like beam, indicating the direction of the Dungeon. Crow remarks that Akira is fortunate the demons haven't transported Amelia to the demon realm yet. Akira promptly dons his equipment. He then speeds towards the Dungeon atop Kitchen. Wo cautions him against repeating his previous day's recklessness. Akira concedes, acknowledging he ought not to have impotently jeopardized his life, as it could have resulted in negative damage alongside him. Nate reassures him that his own safety isn't his primary concern, but rather, he wishes to prevent Akira from sustaining harm. Concurrently, Amelia, weary and wounded, is held within the dungeon, where a demon named Orum addresses her with apparent cheerfulness. Orum expresses satisfaction with the current situation, disclosing that while demons possess a spam to command monsters, he had been curious about its impact on humans and other races. He dispatches a fleeing centipede towards Amelia, remarking that she helped him discover his unique spell cannot control elves, but it can render them immobile. Amelia, mustering her remaining strength, inquires why she is being held captive in the dungeon. Orum responded that only demons of second grade or higher possess the ability to use teleportation magic. However, he, being merely a third grade demon, lacks this capability. Therefore, he awaits his superior's arrival to transport them to the demon continent via their teleportation spell. He admits uncertainty regarding his boss's arrival, but expresses no urgency, as he finds pleasure in conversing with Amelia. He encourages her to ask any questions she desires, vowing to answer truthfully. He maintains confidence that even if Akira were to arrive before his superior, and Amelia divulges all information, Akira would still be incapable of defeating him. Nevertheless, he reassures her that she will remain unharmed throughout the ordeal, since he must present her to the Demon Lord in optimal condition. Simultaneously, Akira is actively seeking Amelia, and the ring consistently indicates the dungeon's direction. He resolves to accelerate his pace, just as a hooded sorcerer approaches, requesting his assistance. Akira recalls her as a persistent follower, and the instant the four-clad magi proposes accompanying him to rescue Amelia. He seizes her by the collar. He orders the young woman to disclose her knowledge of Amelia, threatening immediate execution if he perceives her as a threat. He will eliminate her. The girl then explains her Scent Tracker ability, detailing how she utilized it to pursue Amelia until her disappearance into the dungeon. She further employed this skill to ascertain Akira's trajectory towards the dungeon, and now wishes to offer her aid. Knight confirms the girl's veracity. Consequently, Akira rarely assesses her and then inquires about her motivation for joining him. The girl first identifies herself as Lil, the inaugural princess of the best folk nation of Europe. She had researched intelligence indicating the Demon Lord as interested in Amelia, prompting her journey to inform both Amelia and Akira. Nevertheless, she Miss Akira won't credit a stranger as work with such collaboration, leading her to shadow him until the demonic assault occurred yesterday. Akira, however, remains less than fully trusting. Plus, he employs his work eye ability on her, confirming the veracity of her statement. He then questions her about her spirit barrier skill, causing Lia to become visibly agitated. She demands to know how he is aware of her abilities, but Akira instructs her to simply respond to his query. She clarifies that conventional barriers are typically confined to stationary locations, whereas her spirit barrier can also be deployed on mobile targets. Akira inquires if it can be applied to individuals, and Lia confirms, informing Akira that her unique capability would prove highly beneficial to him. Setsan discloses that the Demon Lord seeks Amelia as resurrection magic, and they absolutely cannot permit him to acquire it. Startled by this revelation, Akira promptly mounts Knegal, instructing Lia to climb aboard. He questions Akira certainty regarding their trust in the guild. Akira responds that her abilities are essential for Amelia's rescue, and she currently have no alternative. Manuel, Amelia, though, becomes aware of the Demon Lord as Shemu, expressing considerable surprise. She asks Orm, why the Demon Lord would desire her resurrection magic, considering demons are virtually immortal and exceptionally difficult to slay. Orm concurs with her assessment, as he perceives little utility in resurrection. He asserts that it is ineffective if the target has been digested for an extended duration. And furthermore, it possesses a lengthy cooldown period. Amelia inquires about his extensive knowledge, to which Orm simply replies that he just knows. He informs her that when Akira inevitably perishes by his hand, she will be powerless to save him. Using her resurrection speed, as she recently employed it on herself, and gleefully discusses the extent of Amelia's sorrow upon witnessing Akira's demise, and expresses hope that her tears will extinguish by Kilike when Liam did due to her actions. Concurrently, Akira continues his journey towards the dungeon. He senses a prior encounter with Lia from his initial summoning and asks her to explain her presence at Tatimi. Lia commences recounting her personal history from its inception. She informs him that she was once an ordinary village girl until a black slime suddenly appeared, consuming her entire family and her village. She is convinced that someone had altered that slime with forbidden magic and unleashed it upon her village, and she is now dedicated to finding those responsible. Akira then comprehends that the slime which consumed Amelia must have been identical. Lia discloses that she was the sole survivor of her village, subsequently adopted by the royal family due to her exceptional abilities, thus becoming a princess. She leveraged her royal authority to investigate the incident, discovering connections to the nation responsible for summoning Akian and others. She stated that numerous humans and beastmen had vanished in recent years, serving as sacrifices for the summoning ritual. Lia is convinced her missing family members were among these sacrifices, as well, which is why she decided to closely observe the heroes summoned through the sacrifice of their lives. Akira informs her that he, too, is one of those individuals, summoned from another realm. However, Lia harbors no resentment towards him, directing her animosity solely at the king and princess who orchestrated it. Akira then discloses that he also harbors profound grievances against them. He rejects the notion that the king summoned them solely to combat the Demon Lord's invasion, and affirms his correctness, pointing out that demons have not attempted to invade the Eoter nation for the past century, and are simply stereotyped as an inherently malevolent race solely driven by violence. At that precise moment, she arrived at the dungeon's entrance, and upon gaining entry, Knight informs Akira that she must eliminate a specific number of monsters on each world. A regulation established by the inaugural Demon Lord, who was responsible for creating all the dungeons, and there is no possible way to circumvent it. Akira expresses that proceeding conventionally would consume an excessive amount of time. Third, he intends to employ shadow magic for a swift resolution. Nietzsche warns him that, at this rate, Akira will be utterly depleted before the event reaches the demon. But Akira retorts that they possess no alternative. Nietzsche then suggests he has a different approach to the predicament, planning to handle the lesser monsters himself, allowing Akira to conserve his energy for the major confrontation. However, Blake is uncertain if he can maintain control once fully engaged in combat, fearing he might inadvertently harm his master. Should he enter a berserk state, Akira, Tauge, reassures him that he will ensure such an event does not occur, then requests Knight as assistance. And Knight promptly transformed into his formidable three-headed manifestation, incinerating hordes of monsters with his very breath as they charge through the dungeon corridor. He begins to lose his composure, crashing into the walls. Akira urges him to regain self-control, and his voice reaches Nietzsche, who feels as though he is submerged in a vast ocean. He experiences a sense of relief upon hearing Akira's voice and asks him to continue speaking his name, believing it will help him remain focused. Akira finds this request somewhat peculiar, but he complies, maintaining conversation with Nietzsche to help him stay in command of himself as they hasten through the dungeon. Akira then asks Nietzsche to elaborate further regarding the animosity others species hold towards Demona. Nietzsche reveals that this hatred stems from the first Demon Lord, who harbored considerable bitterness due to other races forcing him onto the barren continent and launching attacks on his territory. This made him the epitome of ultimate evil, leading people to believe that only a hero could possibly vanquish such a formidable adversary. Knight continues to decimate the monster horde before him, simultaneously informing Akira that most demon lords have not attempted to assault humans. Yet a few generations ago, an individual seeking fame assassinated the wife of a demon lord. This particular demon lord was known for his prideful nature, deeply cherishing his family. However, the loss of his wife transformed him into a destructive force. Akira feels sympathy for the unfortunate demon, but resolves that if he truly ordered his men to abduct Amelia, he will make him suffer the consequences. Knight has no objection to it but advises Akira to bear in mind that not all demons are alike. Some are inherently cruel and seek to obliterate all other races, while others desire to achieve harmony with every species inhabiting the planet. Akira assures him he will remember this. Soon after, he arrives at the chamber where Amelia is being held. Akira immediately declares to the demon that he will retrieve Amelia and commands Lear to cast a protective barrier around her. Meanwhile, Knight refers to his original form, and Aurum expresses his admiration for the Demon Lord as chief subordinate, who brought the assassin hell so swiftly. Knight pays him no attention, and apologizes to Akira, explaining that he will be unable to assist him for a period. Even Amelia apologizes for involving him in this predicament, but Akira tells them both to relax. He assures Amelia that he will not permit Anyon to claim her, simultaneously drawing his daggers. Aurum also conjures his weapon, informing Akira that he will lose both this battle and his life. Knight interjects, reminding him that the Demon Lord's directive was to bring Akira before him. Aurum, however, retorts that his sole instruction was to return Amelia unharmed. He was explicitly commanded to eliminate Akira should he attempt to intervene, and Knight finds it inconceivable that the Demon Lord would alter his decision so drastically. While they are engrossed in conversation, Akira abruptly maneuvers behind Aurum and launches an assault. The demon effortlessly parries the strike, then retaliates by extending his spear, engaging Akira's leg. Akira persists in his relentless assault, yet none of his blows penetrate Orum's defense, who appears to be treating the skirmish as mere amusement. Orum repeatedly inflicts wounds upon Akira but then resolves to conclude the battle swiftly, as it proves less entertaining than anticipated. Akira, however, asserts that they will be the on to bring the confrontation to a close, and activates his shadow magic. The shadows converge on the spot where his blood has fallen, and Akira employs a unique ability to conjure shadow creatures from his own spilled blood, astonishing everyone present. Orum struggles to contend with the shadow beast assailing him from every direction. While he is preoccupied with the shadow wolves, Akira charges forward, slashing his arm and leg, forcing him to relinquish his weapon. However, Akira is now profoundly fatigued, and Orum reveals further stratagem, producing and playing an unsettling flute. The airy melody summons monsters under his command to join the fray. Akira panics at this, as his shadow magic remains on cooldown, leaving him without a means of defense. The creatures begin to charge a devastating beam, intending to obliterate him instantly. However, Lia expends all her energy to conjure a formidable barrier around Akira just before she collapses. Initially, the barrier absorbs the monster's assaults, but as they attempt to transition to close quarters combat, it reflects their own attacks back at them, decapitating them cleanly. Immediately following this, Amelia approaches Akira, informing him that he is not able to move since Orum has been debilitated. Satan takes cover behind him. Orum, Manuel, voices his self-disappointment. Akira aims his dagger at him but falters before delivering the final strike. Orum then prods him to hasten, taunting him about being an assassin who cannot even dispatch a vulnerable target. Akira, however, grapples with the dilemma of slaying someone who bears such a human-like appearance. Orum as superior suddenly teleports into the vicinity, clearly displeased by Orum's defeat. Akira and his companions are now gripped by terror, understanding their inability to overcome a second great demon.